Welcome everyone to The Unsolved. This is a brand new YouTube channel focused around the unsolved mysteries of the world and the unsolved mysteries of horror. So today's episode is really a quick one. Well, I say quick one. It's really covering off what's going to be the content for Season 1 of The Unsolved, what episodes are we going to be focusing on, and giving you all a snapshot of the mysteries ahead and give you guys a snapshot of what to look forward to. Now, there's going to be a lot of episodes over 2021 covering a whole range of different timelines, different types of events, ranging from, the ghostly, the mysterious, all the way through to true crime and mysterious murders and disappearances. A lot of these episodes as well and topics you've most likely seen yourself online. Hopefully I want to give my sort of spin on these topics. Hopefully you enjoy it. It's something I'm very passionate about, is these sort of unsolved mysteries. And hopefully this little Scottish guy can give you that sort of twist on these mysteries and maybe share some information you may not know about them if you've been studying them for a number of years. So without any further ado, guys, we're going to crack on with what is going to be the upcoming episodes for Season 1 here on The Unsolved. So, straight away, what was the first mystery? So our first mystery that we're going to be hopefully looking at, and again this isn't a top 10, top 20 video, these are just literally the mysteries in no particular order, but we're starting off with the incident at the Dyatlov Pass. This is my personal favourite, which is why I want to cover this one off first, and I know it's been well documented over the years, as are all these mysteries that we're going to be talking about over the year. So the Dyatlov Pass, what happened? What is it? So on the first night of February 1959, 9 ski hikers died mysteriously in the mountains of what is now Russia. The night of the incident, the group had set up camp on a slope, enjoyed dinner and prepared for sleep, but something went catastrophically wrong because the group never returned. On February 26, searchers found the hikers' abandoned tent, which had been ripped open from the inside. Surrounding the area were footprints left by the group. Some wearing socks, some wearing a single shoe, some were barefoot, all of which continued to the edge of the nearby wood. That's where the first 2 bodies were found, shoeless and wearing only underwear. The scene bore marks of death by hypothermia, but as medical examiners inventoried the bodies, as well as the other 7 that were discovered over the months that followed, hypothermia no longer made sense. In fact, evidence made no sense at all. One body had evidence of blunt force trauma, consistent with a brutal assault. Another had 3rd-degree burns. One had been vomiting blood. One was missing a tongue. And some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. Theories floated including KGB interference, drug overdose, a UFO, gravity anomalies, and the Russian version of the Yeti. Recently, a documentary filmmaker presented a theory involving a terrifying but real phenomenon called infrasound, in which the wind carries with the topography to create a barely audible hum that can nevertheless induce powerful feelings of nausea, panic, dread, chills, nervousness, and raise the heartbeat rate. It also can cause things such as breathing difficulties. The only consensus remains that whatever happened involved an overwhelming and possibly inhumane force. Another episode we'll be focusing on is called Sickening Noises. In December 2006, a CIA officer checked into the American Embassy's health office in Havana, suffering from nausea, headache and dizziness. Days later, 2 more CIA officers reported similar ailments. By late 2018, the number grew to 26 Americans and 13 Canadians experiencing nausea, hearing loss, vertigo, nosebleeds, and focusing issues. In all the cases, victims claimed the symptoms were triggered by a strange noise they'd heard at their homes or hotel rooms. One person said the noise was high-pitched, another described a beam of sound pointed into their rooms. Some insisted that the noise more closely resembled marbles rolling along the floor. The illness confounded medical experts. Doctors at the University of Pennsylvania who examined some of the victims diagnosed concussion-like symptoms, but found no signs they'd suffered concussions. We know what you must be thinking. The Cuban government is up to something. The Cubans vehemently deny they're responsible, and many Americans investigators believe them. That is because they still don't know who or what made the victims sick. Was it a type of weapon? Something new we'd never seen before? The CIA claims it doesn't know of any weaponry that could cause these symptoms. What about ultrasound? One theory holds that one pair of covert eavesdropping devices placed too close to each other by Cuban agents may have inadvertently produced such a reaction, like the kind of feedback you hear when someone stands too close to the microphone. But the FBI has found no evidence to substantiate that argument. In fact, the ultrasound is above the range of human hearing. Recordings of the sounds from some of the victims only added to the confusion. Two scientists who studied the recordings believe they captured the sound of lovelorn male crickets. One of the scientists, Alexander Stubbs of the University of California in Berkeley, says the insects are incredibly loud. You can hear them from inside a diesel truck going 40 miles an hour on the highway. Still, the scientists have no idea why the sounds might lead to illness in humans. Maybe it was just nerves. Cuba is a high-threat, high-stress post. A former embassy official told Publica.org that diplomats are warned that there will be surveillance. There'll be listening devices in your house, probably in your car. For some people, that puts them in a high-stress mentality, in a threat anticipation mode. True, but then how to explain what happened in China? In May 2018, an American posted in the consulate in Guangzhou was diagnosed with a very same mystery illness. Ultimately, 15 Americans were evacuated. While the seemingly airborne cause of these brain injuries is still a mystery, the fallout is clear. The Americans removed 60% of their diplomats from Cuba and expelled 15 Cuban diplomats from Washington, D.C. The mysterious sounds may well be the opening shots of a new kind of Cold War. Next mystery is the ghost ship of the Mary Celeste. Something quite famous in history, and I know a lot of conspiracy theorists and a lot of historians have studied the Mary Celeste. But what happened? On December 4th, 1872, a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste was found empty and adrift in the Atlantic. It was found to be seaworthy and with its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat, which it appeared had been boarded in an orderly fashion. But why? We may never know, because no one on board was ever heard from again. In November 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York, bound for Genoa, Italy. She was manned by Captain Benjamin Briggs and 7 crew members, including Briggs' wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Supplies on board were ample enough for 6 months, and luxurious, including a sewing machine and an upright piano. Commentators generally agree that to precipitate the abandonment of a seaworthy ship, some extraordinary and alarming circumstances must have arisen. However, the last entry in the ship's daily log reveals nothing unusual, and inside the ship all appeared to be in order. Theories over the years have included mutiny, pirate attack, and an assault by a giant octopus or sea monster. In recent years, scientists have posed the theory that fumes from alcohol on board caused an explosion that, as a result of a scientific anomaly, did not leave behind any signs of burning, but was terrifying enough that Briggs ordered everyone into the lifeboat. Who and where is D.B. Cooper? This is another one of my personal favourites, as to this day people are still on the hunt for D.B. Cooper, or signs of D.B. Cooper. So what happened? On November 24th, 1971, Dan Cooper was a passenger on the Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland bound for Seattle. It was a mere 30-minute flight. He was described by passengers and flight attendants as a man in his mid-40s, wearing a dark suit, black tie, with a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and a neatly pressed white-collar shirt. He took his seat, lit a cigarette, and politely ordered a bourbon and soda, of which he paid cash. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to the 23-year-old flight attendant, who ignored it, assuming it was just the man's phone number. "Miss, you better look at the note," Dan Cooper told her. "I have a bomb." The note's exact wording is part of the mystery, since Cooper reclaimed it after the flight attendant read it. But his demands were for $200,000 in negotiable American currency, worth around $1 million in today's money. 4 parachutes and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane on arrival. The flight attendant brought the demands to the captain. The airline's president authorised full cooperation. The other passengers had no idea what was happening, having been told that landing was delayed due to mechanical difficulties. At 5:39 PM, the plane landed. An airline employee delivered a cash-filled knapsack and parachutes, and Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 flight attendants to leave the plane. During refuelling, Cooper outlined his plan to the crew. A southeasterly course toward Mexico, with 1 further refuelling stop in Nevada. 2 hours later, the plane took off. When it landed in Reno, Cooper's absence was noted. Cooper, whom the media mistakenly referred to as DB Cooper, was never seen or heard from again. No parachute was found, and the ransom money was never used. In 1980, a young boy on vacation with his family in Oregon found several packets of the ransom money, identifiable only by serial numbers, leading to an intense search of the area for Cooper or his remains. Nothing was ever found. For a time, it was speculated that Mad Men's fictional Don Draper was the man who would become Cooper. In the real world, a parachute strap was found in 2017 at one of Cooper's possible landing sites. Living statues. From 1917 to 1928, 500,000 people were afflicted with a ghastly condition that could be part of the plotline in a horror film. The victims, very much alive and conscious, found themselves inexplicably frozen states, their static bodies prisons for their minds. Encephalitis lethargica, EL, I probably pronounced that wrong, but aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread around the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe and India by 1919. About 1/3 of those stricken with the illness died. Of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them. All the while fully aware of their surroundings, though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks or years. The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation, triggered by a rare strain of Streptococcus, the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. Scientists' best guess it is that bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victims helpless. None of this explains why the illness disappeared, only to resurface sporadically, be it in Europe in the 1950s or in China 10 years ago, when a 12-year-old girl was hospitalised for 5 weeks with the disease. Are such occurrences the new normal? Or are they signs that EL could be planning something bigger any day? A 2004 analysis of 20 patients with the symptoms remarkably similar to EL concluded that whatever ailed them is still prevalent. As such, history's so-called sleeping sickness remains the stuff of nightmares. Where are the Sodder children? George and Jenny Sodder of West Virginia were forced to cope not only with the immeasurable loss of their children, but also with the mysterious circumstances surrounding that loss. After the Sodder home burned to the ground on the night before Christmas in 1945, 5 of the 10 Sodder children were still alive and accounted for. But what happened to the other 5? From all accounts, it would seem they have vanished into thin air. Notice how we don't say vanished into smoke. That's because in the ruins of the fire, zero physical evidence was found of the children that were missing. This is virtually impossible from a scientific standpoint. But that wasn't all that smelled off about the events that night. Apparently George tried to save the children, who he believed were still trapped inside, by using his coal truck, which strangely was inoperable at the time. The phone lines to the house were found to have been cut. A woman claimed to have seen all 5 missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was in progress. And a woman at Charlestown Hotel who saw the children's photos in a newspaper said she had seen 4 of them, of the 5 a week after the fire. The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of the Italian extraction. She said in a statement, "I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and wouldn't allow it." The Sodder family theorised that the children had been kidnapped, perhaps in an attempt to extort money, perhaps to coerce George into joining the local mafia. The Sodders were Italian immigrants. Or perhaps in retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and Italy's fascist government. From the 1950s until Jenny Sodder's death in the late 1980s, the Sodder family maintained a billboard in State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 vanished children and offering a reward for any information that led to their discovery. The last surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, aged 69, still doesn't believe her siblings perished in the fire. The Flann Isles Lighthouse Disappearances. In 1900, 3 keepers of the Flann Isles Lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland disappeared under the strangest of circumstances. The lighthouse was manned by a 3-man team: Thomas Marshall, James Ducat and Donald MacArthur, with a 4th man rotating in from shore. On Boxing Day, December 26th, on 1900, the relief keeper arrived to find none of the lighthouse keepers present. The only sign that anything was amiss was an overturned chair near the kitchen table. No bodies were ever found, which has led to endless speculation. Theories range from drownings to abduction by foreign spies, a ghost ship or a giant sea monster. Whatever happened back in December 1900 at the Flann Isles Lighthouse, we may never know. The Circleville Letters. In 1976, residents of Circleville, Ohio began receiving hate mail that has wreaked havoc ever since. The letters, postmarked from Columbus, were invasive and accusatory, highlighting a supposed affair between school bus driver Mary Gillespie and the school superintendent. One letter addressed to Mary's husband Ron threatened his life if he didn't put a stop to the affair. By 1977, the husband was dead, the result of a suspicious 1-car crash involving shots fired. When the sheriff ruled the death as an accident, however, residents began receiving letters accusing the sheriff of a cover-up. The letters continued throughout the 1970s and into the early 1980s, and even after Ron's sister's husband, Paul Freshour, was convicted of writing the letters and attempting to murder Mary via booby-trap rigged pistol. Even with Freshour in prison, however, the letters continued. He even received one himself. In 1994, Freshour was released and he maintained his innocence until his death in 2012. The true identity of the Circleville letter writer remains unknown. Some still believe it was Freshour, Others believe it was Mary herself, and that she used the letters to support the perfect murder of her own husband. What really happened to young Walter Collins? In 2008, Clint Eastwood's film Changeling reawakened interest in one of the most bizarre and tragic crime stories of the 1920s. Single mum Christine Collins reported her 9-year-old son Walter missing on March 1928 from their home in Los Angeles. 5 months later, the police brought Walter back to Christine, except it wasn't Walter, and Christine knew it. But the LA police dismissed Christine's concerns, going so far as to accuse her of terrible mothering and having her committed to a mental hospital. The real Walter Collins was never found, and over time authorities came to believe he was one of the victims of convicted child murderer Gordon Stewart Northcote. Although Northcote's mother offered a confession for killing Walter, whatever happened to Walter Collins, his body was never found, and no one ever learned what really happened, nor has it been established with any certainty why the police were so invested in covering up the boy's disappearance that they brought a different child back to Christine and tried to convince her and the rest of the world that this child was Walter. So thank you all for listening and staying with us through this video. Again, this was a short highlight of each episode that will be coming on Season 1 of The Unsolved. There's a good range of true crime, mysteries, historical mysteries. It's there for you all. And we hope Season 1 is going to be a success. We hope there's plenty there for you all to enjoy. Anyone who loves mysteries, these are the stories that we hope is going to endure you over 2021. So with that, thank you very much for watching. And please comment, share, like and subscribe to the new channel. Let us know down below in the comment section, what episodes you're really looking forward to seeing. And also put in the comment section any topics or mysteries that you'd like me to cover going into Season 2. Because these things take a lot of time and effort to research, to edit, to produce. So if I have an idea of what's coming up in Season 2 through you guys giving me great suggestions and mysteries, all the better for it. And quickly, a quick shout out. If any of you are interested in supporting the channel and helping to bring out the content quicker or helping grow the channel, then please head on over to our Patreon. There's a link in the description below where you can choose to donate to the channel if you want to be a part of The Unsolved. So finally, click that subscribe button, click the bell button to notify you of any updates. Thanks again for joining us today on our first episode of The Unsolved. I've been your host, David, and I hope to see you on the first true mystery as we go through the Dyatlov Pass.